Hello. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Zach. I am the Swiftologist, and today we are continuing 1989 month. You thought it was over. You thought 1989 month was over, but here we are. Here we are because we have one final order of business to attend to before we can ceremoniously crown the 1989 Taylor's version era. I, of course, have to do my track list ranking and reshuffle. If you're new here, my name is Zach. I make thoughtful weekly videos about pop culture, and today I'm going to be doing another installment of my popular series with many of you, where I go through and discuss the re-recorded versions of an old Taylor Swift album, and then reshuffle, rejig, reimagine, remaster the track list to kind of tell a story that, in my opinion, is a little bit more cohesive and has a better narrative flow than whatever was constructed in the first place, because it is my supposition that Taylor puts very little thought into her track lists, though I have to say that 1989 really isn't the most chaotic of them all. The one that really needs my help super badly is Red, and my Red track list ranking and reshuffle has been filmed for months. It's locked in the vault waiting for a time when I have nothing to make content about so that it can get posted. I have a feeling that might be sooner rather than later. I'm going on a little vacation soon, so look out for that. But before we can do that, we have to get to the HBIC, who just outsold the original HBIC. And how crazy is that? I've been having a lot of feelings about the Taylor's version project and its immeasurable success, and that will all, kind of come to fruition in next week's video, so stay tuned for that. But before we get into that, I have to give a big thank you to the sponsor of this video. I am so excited to be working with Skillshare and really happy to be sharing something with you that I think will be super helpful and may even answer a couple of the questions that you guys ask me all the time. What I love about Skillshare is the breadth and depth of the creative classes, courses, and experiences that you can have on this platform. I have been really interested in learning more about how to use ChatGPT to help me structure my fabled video essays that take me so long to produce. But the issue with ChatGPT for me that I've always had is trying to prompt it and get it to do what I want it to do correctly without being too automated or feeling too robotic or really getting away from the point that I'm trying to make. So I don't really use ChatGPT in terms of creating any content for what I want to create, but I do often use it to help me create an outline or a structure or come up with a video title, because it has kind of an SEO brain to it. So if you work in social media at all, or you ever need to have any sort of creative copy, I really recommend Peggy Dean's class, ChatGPT for Creatives, to help you with your creative goals. And most importantly, she goes through the power of the prompt, because ChatGPT is really only as good as the information that you give it and the direction that you feed it to help create what you need from it. So using it for emails, social media, content creation, research, these are all things that Peggy walks us through how to do. Next up on my list for my ADHD brain is going to be doing Ali Abdaal. He is a great YouTuber who talks a lot about productivity and work habits. I'm going to be taking his Notion masterclass to try and finally get a to-do list and a schedule in place. And so many people in my life are going to thank me when I'm able to do that. The first 500 people to use my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Join Skillshare and become a member today to access a wealth of creative knowledge that I truly don't think you can find anywhere else on the internet. Here we are again on that little town street on the tiermaker.com website, and the categories that we have today are, let's just say, different than the default categories that were put in. The default categories were very sweet and nice, and the very bottom tier was I know all the words, but I don't really like it that much. That's not how we roll up in the Swiftologist space. I'm going to tell you how I really feel. So the top tier, the most iconic place that you can be in this scenario, is the truly discovered supermodel. So good that you're no longer an undiscovered supermodel. I don't have to beat the drum for you. You are just it. You are the it girl. And I don't know how many of these re-recordings are going to make it in there, but we'll see. I'm shooting for the stars. A legend, an icon. She's pretty good. She's the moment. Is she the discovered supermodel? Maybe she still hasn't gotten her feet wet in the industry. Maybe she's still walking her first runway, but everybody knows that she's excellent. And we have, well, yes. Well, yes. That's just kind of a no comment. Neither terrible nor amazing. It's a well, yes moment. On my list is a song that is quickly rocketing towards the bottom of the list. And the bottom of that list is Style Taylor's version. A re-recording so catastrophic that I had to create a category in and of itself. The Style Taylor's version is the ultimate botch. It's a betrayal. It's a hardship undertaken by people who only wanted to be members of the Style Nation and who were rudely awakened to the reality that the place that they had always dreamed of was actually, in fact, a mirage. It didn't exist. As always, I kind of get a little torn when I'm doing these rankings as to my historical allegiances. So like, how am I ranking these songs based on what they mean to me and what they've meant to me throughout my life? I'm very fickle, so my opinions change all the time, and I'm totally open to having my opinion changed whenever on any song. 1989 Taylor's version, surprisingly, has made me do, I would say, the biggest turnaround on songs that I thought I would never come around on. So that's positive. But when I rank in these reshuffling videos, what I'm really ranking is more so the re-recording rather than the actual song itself. Because the actual song itself, I feel like I've talked about my rankings objectively about these songs a lot. I will mention it as I go through because I think there are some differences. Like, there are going to be songs that make it into the bottom of that list that should be at the top were they not bungled. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Let's dive in and see how 1989 Taylor's version fares quality-wise compared to the other records. Also, for the vault tracks, I'm just going to go with the categories that I have. I think they're fairly porous. They're wide enough to encompass new songs as well. But let me just give you a spoiler alert and say that this is the best, by far, vault track array that we have ever had from a Taylor's version project. All right, so we begin our story in New York. And again, I think I said this in my reaction video. I've been welcomed to New York, but do I want to be there? It's kind of shocking to me that Ryan Tedder was brought back to botch his own creation. I don't really understand how we are having 1989 outsell the original version of the album, and yet it sounds like we didn't pay attention to the finer details of many of these allegedly career-defining, legacy-making songs. Welcome to New York started as something that was just kind of okay to me and has quickly become a botch. The levels and the mastering of all of these tracks are just all over the place. They are not very good. I understand and I appreciate that Max Martin did not return to this project, which means that the overall executive production of this record was always going to be a challenge. But I think there are some songs that are so glaringly different that it's like, girl, did you just wake up and record this and you had to get on stage a minute later and you said this is good enough? Because that's what some of them sound like. Welcome to New York is going into on my list. It's not quite Style TV, but it's not a well yes, because I feel a little negatively about it. Speaking of the well yes category, Blank Space is going straight into well yes. I mean, you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice. You can't make the screaming, crying, perfect storms, nightmare dressed like a daydream line hit the same way now that it did in 2014. That's just not a realistic proposition or expectation of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So I'm going to put it into well, yes, because I just think that there is no way that you could outdo it. But if we were talking about my original rankings, Welcome to New York would probably be in well, yes, and Blank Space would definitely be in Discovered Supermodel or A Legend or an Icon. Style, Taylor's version. What was that? It goes straight into its own category. I mean, just shockingly bad. Shockingly bad. And watching Swifties on Twitter say that it is cruel and disgusting to say that Style Taylor's version is not good or to say that you don't like it is really the problem with the Swiftie community at large, isn't it? Isn't it crazy how you just can't even offer an opinion on anything without being told that you're being a hater or being negative or whatever the hell it is? Constructive criticism is helpful. It's useful. I think it would probably make the Taylor's version project better if some of us listened to the criticisms that were being lobbed at certain production elements, certain issues that have cropped up time and time again on each and every re-recording. If you disagree with me, that's totally fine. But I would never try and call you cruel and disgusting for saying that a re-recorded version of a 10-year-old Taylor Swift song is bad. Like, come on. Go outside, touch grass. Out of the Woods, the Discovered Supermodel. Out of the Woods, I always really liked. I have a sentimental attachment to it because it was the second song that we heard from 1989, and it really gave us a bigger, broader picture of what that record was going to sound like. A lot of us at the time were a little bit worried that Shake It Off was going to be kind of the level of depth that we were going to be getting into on that record. And to be frank, Out of the Woods came out of the woods and smacked us all in the face because it had this emotional resonance to it that was very plaintive and simple, and it didn't really need a lot of like excessive verbiage or lyricism to get there, to get at that emotional release. We all know that Red was about those winding, rambling, incredible, iconic, capacious songs, but Out of the Woods, I think, manages to achieve that emotional impact with a very light touch. And when something seems like it has a light touch, that means that it had a heavy touch behind the scenes. It was considered, it was well taken care of. And I think that you can hear Taylor's joy in this song. Out of the Woods was one of the first songs, not the very first one, but one of the first songs she worked on with Jack Antonoff, and really kind of capped off a beautiful, budding, creative relationship that is just growing stronger and stronger each day. So I think that you can really hear the attention, the love, and the care that went into it. Similarly, I'm going to put All You Had to Do Was Stay in a legend and icon because that's one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs of all time. The re-recording was never going to replace the original for me, no matter what it was. So I can't put it in the discovered supermodel because there are small quibbles in those ad-libs in the back half of the song. But I can definitely put it in a legend and an icon because it was given like a surprising amount of attention. I wasn't expecting Taylor to like really not fumble the bag on that. I was worried about the levels and the dynamic, like the mixing and the mastering of that stay in the chorus, that high pitched stay. And I think you can see in my reaction that I was chuffed when she got it right. Shake It Off. Well, yes. Well, yes. There is, I've noticed all over Taylor's version, a high-pitched white noise sound. And it comes across really clearly in some songs, and Shake It Off is one of those songs. So I have to give it a demerit point for that. Otherwise, I felt it was vocally very close to the original. I thought the bridge was excellent. I really liked the last chorus. This is one where she nailed the ad-lib. She decided to put them forward in the mix as they should always be. And I thought that was generally a successful re-record, but I don't have much to write about it. I wish you would. Now, this is sad. This is sad. I Wish You Would on my list of 1989 songs objectively is up there in the truly discovered supermodel. Out of the Woods isn't there, by the way. Out of the Woods would be in a legend or well, yes. But I Wish You Would really is one of my top 2-3 favorite songs on 1989. It was my surprise song in Chicago. I love this song. I always loved the more Harry Haylor focused songs on this record because I thought they were super interesting and they revealed a relationship dynamic that Taylor hadn't really explored before. So I really love this song, and this song really relies heavily on a guitar sample, and that guitar sample, I don't know what it is just not faithfully recreated. The second I heard it, I knew it was wrong. It was just not correct, and it lacks the punch and the like full lushness of that original instrumental arrangement that made it such an encompassing sleeper hit to me. So very disappointed kind of in that re-recording. Bad Blood is going into well, yes, because she really fumbles one of those ad-libs in the last chorus. And you'll see a lot of the times that many of these songs were fumbled at that specific hurdle. And again, I can't really blame Taylor for that. I can only blame the person who mixed and mastered it. I don't want to pile on him because apparently he had to go private on Twitter because people were being mean, and I don't want to be mean to him because this is a really incredible undertaking to commit to this project and try and take an exact word for word, note for note remake to these treasures that are so beloved by so many millions of people around the world. It's an impossible task. He was never going to be able to do that perfectly, so no shade. Wildest Dreams. I'm dithering between well, yes, and on my list because on the one hand, I don't think it's all that much different than the original version, but there's something about it that's just not right, and it gives it this like uncanny, almost right quality that is even scarier to me. So I'm going to put that on my list. Where would I put Wildest Dreams now? To be honest, I really loved it so much when it first came out. I was actually looking at my 2014 review of 1989 where I ranked all of the songs, and Wildest Dreams I think was number 1. I think it was Wildest Dreams and Clean that were like number 1, number 2. So funny because neither of those songs would even really be in my top 5 from 1989 at this point. Lovely song, great gown, beautiful gown. I prefer the music video version. I will always say that. If you've been here for more than 5 minutes, you would know that I'm obsessed with the drums in that last chorus of the music video version of Wildest Dreams. But, you know, alas, that was not given to us on this re-recording. How You Get the Girl. I'm putting that in, well, yes. I almost want to put it in a legend or an icon, but people really seem to think that it was botched a lot. And I suppose when I listened to it again, I could hear the differences. But you know what? I'm not going to be swayed by what other people think. That's so not the Swiftologist way. So I'm putting How You Get the Girl in a legend and an icon because I had a very fond experience recollecting this song, and I thought that it was very good. This Love. Well, yes. Well, yes. I think actually I'm going to put This Love into a legend and an icon because I think it's one of the most successful note-for-note remakes, and I have to give credit where credit is due. We are, after all, ranking the re-recordings, not necessarily the original songs. Where would This Love go on my original ranking? Very far down the list, to be honest. To be honest, you'll just have to stay tuned and see if it survives onto my reshuffled organization of this track list. Up next is I Know Places. Now, this was a shock to me. I'm putting this in the discovered supermodel. This is like a huge moment in the Swiftologist nation because I have been banging on about how I hate this song for so long, and this re-recorded version was so good that it made me kind of like the song. The last 30 seconds of the song have always gone crazy, but in this re-recording, I don't know, she put her whole 1989 Ussie into it. Inexplicably. You never know what she's going to put her whole whatever Ussie into it. And from time to time, she picks a completely random song to knock it out of the park with. Red, Taylor's version, for example. Hey Stephen, Tell me why. She just picks these kind of like not overly popular, not super fan favorites, and just completely knocks it out of the park. So I have to give credit where credit is due. Yes, you're believing your eyes. Longtime Swiftologists, I Know Places, is a discovered supermodel. Clean. I'm going to put it in a legend and an icon. A lot of people also really don't like this re-recorded version I've seen. I like how you can hear more details of the instrumental in the background. I think it stays very true to the original recording while also adding a little bit of texture, a little bit of depth. And the best re-recordings are where you can hear more of what was going on in the background to begin with. It's very clear to tell when what is clearer in the background was there and what wasn't there and was added in the re-recording. For example, the wind chime sound in Style, not present in the original, and inexplicably all over the Taylor's version. Wonderland, gag. I'm like losing it at the truly discovered supermodel tier because these are all songs that would not rank in my top 5 of 1989. But Wonderland goes crazy. It goes crazy. It goes hard. She clearly really likes this song. And I thought that the production had like this wallop to it that the original had, but somehow it's just better. It's more intense. It's more enhanced. It kind of reminds me of Haunted Taylor's version, where it just kind of slaps a little bit harder than anything else has slapped before it. You Are in Love, a legend, an icon. It's not good enough. It's not better than the original to be putting it in the discovered supermodel, but I would indeed put it in a legend, an icon. Very, very true to the original, almost indistinguishable. New Romantics style Taylor's version. What happened in my reaction video was that I was kind of tired by the time I got to the end of 1989, and I was happy to be done. It was my birthday. I was ready to start editing and uploading. I just wanted to hear New Romantics and rock out and have fun, and that's what I did. And then when I went back and listened to it again, the beginning is so unbelievably botched. You can literally hear like a leftover metronome ticking at the start, and that horrible white noise, the that part sounds like a bunch of children screaming. It is not good. And New Romantics is, part of the pop Bible, really. New Romantics is one of the centerpieces of 1989, in my opinion, which you will see when I get into my reshuffled tracklist. So to bungle it like that was always going to be a mistake. And I kind of understand it, though, because it probably has the most complicated production on the entire record. There are so many different moving parts, so many different choral and vocal elements going on, and she's like duetting with herself in this kind of filtered voice throughout. It's a tricky one to deal with. Slut. I'm putting her in discovered supermodel because I love the scene setting that's being done here. I love the imagery. I love the language that's used in this. And I think it has a beautiful kind of like Palm Springs, hazy, nostalgic vibe. It is the only like California song on 1989, which adds another layer of understanding of this record to me, which is always what I'm looking for in the vault tracks. How can we see this album in a more total way? What can I learn about it that I didn't know before? Slut really adds, I think, a dimension that I appreciate. Stay Don't Go is a legend and an icon. I think it's a beautiful piece of melodic songwriting. If you watched my lyric analysis, if you haven't, go watch that. My lyric analysis with my podcast co-host, Madeline, Evolution of a Snake, we cheered. We kind of think that the lyricism on this song is a little bit weak. It's a little bit generic. It doesn't really go there apart from in the bridge. It gives us that crucial piece of understanding, however, I say I love you and you say nothing back. We needed to know that. So because of that, it's an essential track. But if it didn't have that, I don't think I would be that moved by it. However, when that last chorus comes in after that kind of brief pause, really reminds me of the pause in Dress. I really enjoy it. Now That We Don't Talk, come on now. Come on now. She is the moment. She is the moment. Quickly becoming one of my favorite tracks from 1989, period and end of dot. One of my favorite tracks. It is so funny, it's so wry, and it's a draft in the truest sense of the word because it sounds unfinished to me. And I think that where she was in her relationship with you-know-who at the time when she was writing this song was fairly unfinished. It hadn't reached a resolution yet. So I think it would have been a little bit disingenuous to the song to go back and kind of force a resolution. I kind of like where it ends. I just really, at that point, at that 2 minute and 30-second mark, I'm like gagging, choking, dying, desperate for another chorus. And we didn't get one. Suburban Legends. Well, yes. I'm dithering between a legend and icon and well, yes, because Suburban Legends has really grown on me a lot. It's very catchy. It does also suffer from that generic songwriting thing where it's just not quite specific enough for me to really get invested in it. But things that are specific enough for me to get invested in, Is It Over Now? Okay, #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100. That freaks me out. I don't know why, because it's like supposed to be my private song. It's my private haylor song. It's the reward that I got for waiting around all these years for answers, for banging the haylor drum and saying there's more to this story than we know, and you guys need to wake up and realize it. When we get into my haylor timeline playlist, I will talk more about Is It Over Now and what kind of place I think it falls in the haylor chronology and timeline. And I love that Taylor toyed with the idea of making it a closer track to the album. And, you know, the difference between having Clean as your closing track and having Is It Over Now as your closing track completely changes the entire narrative flow and conclusion of 1989. Like, it really upends the story that's being told. So I totally get why she left it off, but it is, you know, the undiscovered supermodel that is now discovered because it's a Hot 100 hit, and so it should be. Sweeter Than Fiction. Well, yes, I found the re-recorded version online. I listened to it for a second and I was like, okay, Bad Blood featuring Kendrick Lamar. Also, well, yes, this is, you know, I did say that I thought 1989 TV was the worst re-recording. I haven't gone back to look at any of my other rankings. I don't really know how this stacks up, but I think there's a pretty stacked discovered supermodel tier here. That seems to me like a pretty reasonable summation of the highest points of this album. And Legend and an Icon is nothing to be discounted either. The Style TV category really is only reserved for 2 songs, but those 2 songs were so bad that they basically are like 10 songs in essence, in spirit. So I'm not going to brag about how there isn't a lot of like botches on this record, because I think instead of a lot of botches, there are kind of a lot of just okay songs. And I like to have my highs. But you know what? In terms of the re-recordings, Out of the Woods, I Know Places, and Wonderland really are the superior efforts. Shall we do something fun and just go through and rank these songs based on like how I feel about them rather than the re-recordings, literally just like my personal opinions on these songs? Of course, all you have to do is Stay has to go up. These 3 can stay. Slut is going to go down to a Legend and Icon. I Know Places is going to go down to On My List. Out of the Woods is going to go down to Well, Yes, I think. How You Get the Girl also is going to go to Well, Yes. Bad Blood is going to a Legend and an Icon. I'm a Bad Blood truther. I think it's a great song. Nobody ever wants to listen to me. You Are in Love goes to Well, Yes. This Love goes to On My List. Style goes straight to the tippy top. Sadly, it's not there anymore, but it should be. Wonderland, I think, also would go down to Well, Yes. Suburban Legends probably goes down to On My List, if I'm being honest. Wildest Dreams can go into an Icon, a moment, because she is. I Wish You Would go straight into Supermodel. Welcome to New York actually goes into Well, Yes for me. I think that's where it belongs. Blank Space and Shake It Off. I mean, where else can they be other than the discovered supermodels? Basically, all the singles on 1989 deserve to be up at that top spot. Clean, I think, you know, I'm putting it in a Legend and Icon, but I need to put it back a little bit further because I'm not that mad on it. I'm actually going to move Out of the Woods into a Legend and an Icon because I appreciate its position in the story. Of course, New Romantics has to go up into the discovered supermodel. And do I want to move anything else around here? This looks pretty good to me. I'm pretty happy with this. And you can see it's quite the difference from the Taylor's version, Reshuffle and Reorganization, because this is such a strong album. There's nothing in the Style TV category because there are no true clunkers on this record. Now we're going to get into what I have surmised to be is your favorite part of this video, which is going through the track list of 1989, reshuffling it, reordering it to make a story that feels a little bit more cohesive, to create a listening experience that is front to back. There's no kind of weird pacing interruptions. There's nothing that kind of messes up the flow or feels as though it doesn't belong. This is me trying to get as close to a book, I suppose, a chronological order of a story based on what I have to work with. And this always necessarily entails some cuts. And, you know, even though 1989 is the closest thing I think that Taylor Swift has to a bulletproof album, vaults included, there have been cuts because they either don't move the story along or I feel like they belabor a point that's already been made. There isn't a lot of filler on 1989, so there aren't that many songs cut. I think in total, with the addition of the vault tracks, we had 20 or 21 songs, and my version of the record is 15 songs. So actually I did make a few cuts. we're just gonna have to get into it and I have to show you and tell you what I mean. The bookends are always a very important part of the Taylor Swift album story. That is the beginning and closing track. They start us in one place and bring us to a final destination. They take us on this journey, if you will. They're kind of like the directional poles of the albums. And I think that it's really important to consider these in a different light when we have the re-recordings, because the re-recordings and the vault track specifically allow us to have that bigger, broader understanding of the record, which necessarily changes the journey that we can go on. And what I like so much about the addition of the 1989 vault tracks is that they have created a more holistic picture, a more turbulent image of what Taylor's inner world was like during the 1989 era. And the era of itself was very much focused on appearances and presentation of being this cool girl and moving to a big city and being very happy and not needing a man in her life, when really there was a situationship, a relationship, an on again, off again kind of arrangement that was causing her a lot of grief, and I think interrupting her transition into girl bosshood. And I don't think that we got to explore that fully. So my reorganized track list, which you can find on Spotify, by the way, if I didn't mention that already, I put all of my reorganized albums on Spotify so you can listen start to finish and see if you like the way my version of the album worked. You can also let me know in the comments what you would change to make it perfect for you. So in my reorganized version of 1989, I start the album with New Romantics. Yes, I do. New Romantics. The original record starts with Welcome to New York, which I think is an important thematic message for the original version of the album. But with this version of the album, I think that New Romantics kind of puts us in the headspace of I'm risking it all. Heartbreak is the national anthem. We sing it proudly. Please take my hand and please take me dancing. Please leave me stranded. It's so romantic. She's basically glamorizing that she is opening her heart up again to being heartbroken, while also, you know, we have mentions of crying tears of mascara in the bathroom. There's a real like sisterhood and a sense of friendship and euphoria that comes with feeling happy, free, confused, and lonely at the same time in your 20s. So I think that New Romantics is like the perfect confluence of like friendship and heartbreak that 1989 was truly about. And that's why I wanted to open with New Romantics. The original 3-track run of 1989 is pretty iconic. We have Welcome to New York, then we have Blank Space, and then we have Style. It's like gut punch after gut punch after gut punch. But I decided that we needed to shake it up a little bit because, again, I have a story to tell. So after New Romantics, we're on this jubilant high note. There's a lot at risk, but there's also a palpable sense of like energy and excitement. So we go straight off of New Romantics into Shake It Off. Yes, we do. We go straight into Shake It Off because we're about to go right into Blank Space. Spoiler alert, after Shake It Off. And Shake It Off is really about, you know, trying to, well, for lack of a better phrase, she said it herself, it's about trying to shake off the presumptions and the stereotypes and the rumors that people spread about you, and really making an effort to enjoy your life and move the way that you want to move despite the way that people are talking about you. And I think weirdly Blank Space is very connected to that sense of feeling because Blank Space has a super satirical, knowing, kind of like witty but also biting sense of humor about it. So I think that Shake It Off and Blank Space both address Taylor's public persona in a way that it was really important to the 1989 era. A message that she really wanted to convey was that she was in on the joke and that she was able to laugh at herself, but also that sometimes she felt that what people said about her was unfair. So we go New Romantics, Shake It Off, Blank Space, and then from Blank Space we go into Slut, because Slut is the other side of the coin with Blank Space. It is really kind of, instead of chafing against that label, instead of being that barbed, sharp, and witty kind of comeback queen with all these zingers that she'd kept in her notes app for so long over the years, as she said of the writing process with Blank Space, Slut is really more about kind of being like, I'm going to throw caution to the wind and go headfirst fearless into this love affair that I know is doomed because I am powerless to the draw of this person. And you know what? Maybe your draw is so magnetic and so powerful that it would be worth it to get called a slut. And after Slut, we go straight into Style. And this is a crazy transition when you play it. It's so good. Spoiler alert, I also have this transition on my haylor playlist because I think that she says in Slut that she's throwing caution to the wind, and she also kind of acknowledges that he has something at stake too that he has to give up. They're both kind of weighing their options, and they decide that, you know what, we're just going to do it. Who cares? Screw it. We're just going to go head first into this situationship and see where it goes. And going from Slut into Style is, I think, kind of the high point of this record, because Style is, I would say, one of the only truly happy songs about this relationship that she's talking about. It is It also explains the dynamic that kind of permeates all of her haylor songwriting, which continues through Folklore and Midnights. Let me tell you, it kind of continues this theme that there is some sort of destiny element to the two of them. Now, everybody always accuses me of like being delusional and thinking that haylor's going to get back together. I don't think that. What I find to be so interesting about Harry Styles as a Taylor Swift muse is that he has provoked something in her that no other ex has. She always kind of like neatly ties a bow or comes to some sort of like final resolution or conclusion about something. But, you know, songs such as Question really indicate to us that this situation is never really over. And I think that Style has that kind of like ephemeral red lip classic thing that you like. It's very much about two people that, you know, look good on paper and work together just well when the timing is right. Okay, I just realized that that makes Style track 5. And that kind of throws my whole supposition of what this record was going to be out of whack, because I had Shake It Off at the very, very end of the record and I moved it up to the second track, and I feel really good about that decision. But now I guess we're just going to have to let the track 5 thing go. The idea of the track 5 being the emotional center point of the album, I usually try and stick with that, but unfortunately there is a lot of turmoil and heartbreak on this record, so it's kind of hard to pick just one. And I need this flow. I need the flow of New Romantic, Shake It Off, Blank Space, Slut, and Style. I just have to have it. After Style, we go straight into Out of the Woods, which was before I moved Shake It Off. That was supposed to be the track 5. I think, you know, 1989 doesn't have the strongest contenders for a track 5. I know a lot of the more basic people would suggest that Say Don't Go is a track 5, but Say Don't Go is not specific enough, and it doesn't have the emotional resonance and depth that track 5s usually have. It doesn't have that like startling clarity that Dear John and All Too Well have. All You Had to Do Was Stay, though I love it and it is a sad song if you slow it down, is also not specific or biting and cutting enough to be a track 5. Out of the Woods, however, really fits the bill. But that's irrelevant because it's not track 5. So Out of the Woods is track 6. And after Out of the Woods, which is about that tension, that anxiety, wondering if the ship is ever going to right itself, if you're ever going to make it out of these turbulent waters, I go straight into track 7, which is I Know Places. I Know Places, I think, is kind of the death rattle of the first iteration of the relationship, because it is about being hunted. It is about being the foxes. It is about knowing places that we can hide. But no relationship can thrive in the darkness. You need a little bit of light. You need to be able to claim each other publicly and be happy together. And other people not being happy for you is something that can certainly, you know, loose lips sink ships all the damn time. It can really damage the private and personal relationship that should just be between two people, that gets a little bit more complicated when you're two of the most famous young people in the world with legions of teenage fans that feel very strongly about who you should or shouldn't date. After track 7, we go straight into track 8, which is the closest thing we have to an action song, where there is like a breakup kind of described, the moment where the emotions on this record change, because we start out with this euphoria and this excitement and throwing caution to the wind. Then we get into a very tentative commitment. Then we have the trying to hold on to the commitment with I Know Places. And now we are at the moment where it all falls apart. And that's why Say Don't Go is track 8. I said I love you, you gave me nothing back. And that kind of says it all, doesn't it? After that, then we go into what I think is the more regretful part of this album. I think the emotions that you go through with a breakup can be quite varied. And, you know, on Red, we see a lot of those different emotions ping-ponging back and forth. But I think on 1989, we really have two dominant modes of regret that are on display here. One is this kind of like wistful nostalgia and this subtle belief that things might eventually go back to the way they were, or that you might reunite again in the future. And also this kind of damning resolution, this kind of false sense of security, where I think Taylor's trying to convince herself that it's over when really she knows that it maybe isn't. And those two things are in tension with each other. And that's why I think there is such a complicated, interesting story to be told in a tracklist reshuffle. So after Say Don't Go, we go into Wonderland, number 9. That is a little bit more distanced from the breakup. I would say Say Don't Go is the action part of the breakup, and Wonderland is the kind of first taking a breath, a step away, opening your eyes, looking around at the wreckage and the damage, and seeing, you know, that you'd fallen down a rabbit hole and wondering how you got there. Then at track 10, I have All You Had to Do Was Stay, because All You Had to Do Was Stay is the moment of clarity after you have the surveying of the damage. You're like, okay, I understand now that it's all gone wrong, but what I also understand is that it wasn't because of me, and I was fully in this, and you were the one that wanted to leave Wonderland and go away. And now you're coming back? but it's just too late. It could have been easy. All you had to do was stay. Then after all you had to do was stay, I think we shift from that more kind of accusatory, that more kind of regretful position that I mentioned into the wistful nostalgia. So track 11 is Wildest Dreams. And I'm recently being convinced that Wildest Dreams is in fact about Alex Skarsgård. I am becoming more and more convinced every day that it is not about Harry Styles. He's so tall and handsome as hell. Harry Styles is, I don't think, taller than Taylor Swift. So that doesn't really check out. But then again, the writing on 1989 is so kind of generic, and also I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I just mean that it's like less specific. It's also very kind of based in tropes, James Dean daydream, red lip classic, tall and handsome. Like they're very kind of movie star relationship terms that she's referring to these relationships in, and Harry Styles has certainly been portrayed on this album as a movie star, as this larger than life figure elsewhere. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to say that it's about him, but I'm open to a different interpretation. That's going to change my haylor playlist, so I'm going to have to go through that again. But after all you had to do is stay, we go into Wildest Dreams, because I think she's starting to be a little bit more wishful about it. There is that tension, that push and pull. I'm done. No, I'm not. I'm done. I still want you. I'm done. Is it over now? You know where I'm going with that. So after track 11, we go into track 12, which is I Wish You Would, because I Wish You Would is basically all you had to do was stay, but hopeful. All you had to do was stay is more of an admonishment. It's like, look what you did. You have done this, and your consequences that you don't get to be with me anymore. I Wish You Would is about, you know, I did make the decision that I don't want to be with you anymore, but if you knew how easy it would be to change my mind, you would just have to ask. Like, you just have to come. You actually, all you have to do was ask. That's all you have to do. Ask, and I will reverse course. But unfortunately, he's just driving past her house and not saying anything. But they're both in this weird liminal space where they want the other person to reach out. They need the other person to show commitment, to show desire, to show engagement, and neither of them is willing to do it. And so it falls apart by chance. That's why it feels like it's never over. After I Wish You Would, it's pretty clear that what she wants to happen, what she wishes will happen, doesn't actually happen. So I think she kind of forces herself back into that reprocessing part where she's like, all right, this is where Now That We Don't Talk comes in at track 13, After I Wish You Would. I like the cadence, the switch between I Wish You Would and Now That We Don't Talk. It's a really cool transition as well. And I think that Now That We Don't Talk sounds unfinished because I don't think she really was happy about the fact that the breakup had happened. And she didn't really seem that she felt like it was over in that song either, because the conversation she's having with her mom, she's like, I need to get it off my chest. I need to say these things, but I can't because we're not talking anymore. There's really a sense of like withholding. And I think that that is the animus behind why this relationship feels like it's never really over for her. I don't know about her. I don't really care about his perspective. All I care about is the HBIC and how she deals with her muses in her songwriting. We're getting into the final 2 tracks on the album. Yes, we have 2 tracks left to go. Track 14, After Now That We Don't Talk, is Clean. So now you can see I've changed both of the bookends for 1989. As Taylor said in her kind of little like prologue to Is It Over Now, Clean was a bit of a false ending. And I always felt that Clean rang a little bit too generic in the sense that I didn't fully believe that she was clean the way that she was describing it because of all the other tensions and emotions that had been front loaded on the record with All You Had to Do Was Stay and I Wish You Would and Wildest Dreams. There wasn't really a natural conclusion. And now we know why, because it wasn't really over. And the concluding track of 1989 is It Over Now? Because it's a clever way to end a record, a narrative device. Is it over now? Yes, the record is in fact over. And also I think it shows that this is an ongoing dilemma that she's having with this person, with this relationship. Again, I'm not saying that they're going to get back together, that she has any interest in being with him again. She's pretty happy in her new relationship, but I think the idea of it, the question of it all, the idea that he might interrupt her wedding one day, that is something that as an artist, I think she finds to be very compelling and inspiring. And it's always good for an artist to have someone to pine about, you know? And I think that that's exactly what Harry Styles is for her. So the total runtime of 1989 now is 55 minutes. What are the songs that I have cut? Well, I cut Welcome to New York. I just couldn't see it fitting into the track list here. It is a bit of a forced moment. Bad Blood also didn't make it onto the track list because it doesn't fit with the story I'm trying to tell. It's not about Harry Styles. I suppose I could fit it in somewhere between maybe like Wonderland and All You Had to Do Was Stay, but it didn't feel true. It didn't feel true to the experience that I was trying to tell. How You Get the Girl, that one I did kind of pick over a little bit, but again, it's very instructive and it comes to what some may consider to be a false conclusion. So I don't know if I would put it on right now. Clearly, I don't have it in my reshuffle track list. Again, I try and pare it down and make it as cohesive and tight as it possibly can be. And How You Get the Girl didn't make the cut. Similarly, This Love, vague, didn't make the cut. not interested in having that on there. And Suburban Legends also didn't make the cut, which I think might shock people, but if you really go into the sequence of songs that I put in there, I would challenge you to find a place where it could fit. I'm actually open to putting it on there, so if you can think of a place to put How You Get the Girl or Suburban Legends, leave it in the comments down below and I will consider adding it in. And don't forget to save this playlist to your Spotify in case you want to listen to it, and let me know if you think that it flows better than the original 1989, if it's a compliment to it. What is your listening habit with the record? I would love to know. And how are we feeling about 1989 debuting at #1 and outselling the original? And is it over now going #1? It all feels a little bit crazy. And next week's video is going to be a little bit controversial, and I think it's going to add something to the conversation about Taylor's current astronomical success. So stay tuned for that. And also make sure to subscribe to my channel, because over 50% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed, and that's just mean. So don't be mean, subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye, Swifties.